There was a little booklet put out about Sunday school, which is the children, in tradition, the children came to church on Sunday and went out to Sunday school, and they said, not Sunday, not school.
So thank you again for meeting with us today.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit then, how can you identify a building, or how can you identify if a building is a church?
That's not necessarily so easy, really. Churches have changed a lot and partly, I suppose, culturally changed as the space. They were originally met in houses, and when we see very early churches that are house churches have become churches that look like basilicas, Roman law places, so you get the churches that are really quite square. Okay. This church outside looks quite traditional, long building with either a tower or a steeple at the end. But it says, I suppose, this is quite a Victorian church. The Victorian churches had an idea of what churches might look like. But one of our other churches, St Luke's, unless you saw the cross outside, you wouldn't know at all that it was a church. And partly, I think churches have been quite at the cutting edge of technology and building. So new styles of general building quite often came out of what churches were. These days, churches, well, you'll have house churches, you'll have churches like this, you'll have churches meeting in warehouses. So, yeah, that's not really an easy question to say. Quite often a cross outside. Apart from that, not necessarily.
So who can attend a church?
Anyone can attend a church.
Anyone?
Yes.
Oh, lovely. That's a straightforward one. So how about, when can a person attend a church? Days of the week, times of the day?
Churches should be open all the time, all day, and the first church that I had my responsibility with was always open from 8 o'clock in the morning when we came to do morning prayer till 6 o'clock when I shut up for night prayer. And people did obviously come in and out of it. There's a security problem now. We're less able to be open, which is a real sadness. But it's whenever the church is open, whenever I'm in, it's open. Whenever we're praying, it's open. And we would just hope it was open as much as possible.
Are there any do's and don'ts in a church in terms of things you can do or things you shouldn't do?
Generally, we expect that parts of our church to be kept for prayer. So, and this church seemed quite delineated by the carpeted area. People generally wouldn't go up there unless they were going into a service, and would generally use this area more than the area that's a bit set apart. Apart from that, I suppose churches generally keep quiet because people want to come and meet God here, except when they're joining together to make loud noises, singing or whatever. So there are things. Other things you shouldn't do is be irreligious and be damaging, criminal damage.
Now, I think this question came in from a school. Do churches have other purposes?
Yes, and I think that's a little bit we talked about, really about churches being special for prayer and churches being open to the community because God came to live among us. And this church is a fine example of that, out of all our churches probably, that it is used for both. So there are parts where we just keep for prayer. And this part here, which is open, it's been opened up. It would have had pews in at one time, but open for the community use. Yes, we do use this for prayer, but it could also be used for a concert, for a band, I suppose you could do, there's a yoga group who come on Friday, so it can be used for movement and all sorts of uses.
And how has the church adapted to COVID-19?
We're finding that we are trying to balance both now, because there are people who feel the need to come back to church, feel that their Christian faith is supported by having been with other people, and some people who are still fearful, and people who need to keep themselves shielded. So at the moment we're doing both services. We're doing services online, sending them out to closed groups like WhatsApp groups, sending them out open groups like Facebook, as well as having services in church.
And tell me a little bit about how the online services are going. You mentioned there that you're creating a more introductory one now. I think that's quite interesting. Tell us a bit about that.
We're having many more people watching us online than we would have coming through the doors. So what kind of service might they want to be involved with? So we're looking at doing services that are looking at events of the time or situations of the time. So we had one concerning Black Lives Matter, something about the environment, as well as different times of the year, harvest, which has been a traditional church one, but and the turning of the year, autumn into winter. So we're doing those kind of services. So we're doing that. We're doing the Eucharist, which is very what a church would do. Then we, right from the early days again, we were a couple of days into lockdown with people saying we're missing praying together. So every morning there's daily prayer goes out, a short service goes out every day. About 60 or so people get that on their phones. We're doing a reflection on the day, themes, every day apart from Sunday. That goes out onto phones and onto Facebook. So we're just trying to make connections for people.
Do you speak to your congregation about dementia, or has anyone come to speak to them? And did you know that the stats in dementia for the BAME community will go up 7-fold in the next 20 years compared to the white majority?
I didn't know the last part. I think that's fascinating, and I would really want to be interested in finding out what that's about. Are we talking about dementia? Perhaps not as much as we should. But we are trying to make the connections. And one of the reasons why we had the Sunday service being the Eucharist, it was connected with people seeing what they normally see. Because I think memory loss has been a problem for a lot of people over lockdown, because some of the routines have gone. And a lot of our older people are saying to themselves, I don't feel as, I feel my memory's going, or I don't feel as connected. So I think we should be really particularly concerned at this time about dementia and how we're coping with that. Some of our churches have things like dementia-friendly cafes and dementia-friendly services, and we talk a lot about, we're altering our worship when we go out in normal times, to residential homes and care homes, about the kind of worship we do, making it one of these traditional prayers that you'd expect to hear, things like the Lord's Prayer, making sure that in the old form, that's people make the connections from their childhood, things that are interactive, so holding things. So we are thinking about that, but I think it is a really big issue that we ought to be doing more of them.
Okay, what modern day challenges has the Christian community faced?
Our decline in numbers, and that our numbers are ageing. So the amount of people who are able to be active has decreased. Sunday shopping, Sunday sports, and again there's a tension between that. The older congregations want Sunday worship, but actually modern families, Sunday's not the best time of the day, best time of the week to have worship. So this service that we're putting out, that this sort of connecting service is going out on a Thursday evening. So we're looking at different times. There was a little booklet put out about Sunday school, which is the children. In tradition, the children came to church on Sunday and went out to Sunday school, and they said, "Not Sunday, not school."
Right. Did they say what they would like instead?
Yeah, that it happens different times. Quite often, people are meeting together. Want what's called messy church. Where younger families come. Quite often, Saturdays are a better time, or evenings. My first church again was in a village with other villages around, and the best time for the families was directly after school. So we had a 3:15 service on Thursday, And that was the second biggest service in our church's week.
Well, thank you very much. I think we've all learned quite a lot there. Like I said, I thought I was quite familiar with a lot of aspects, but I feel like I've learned lots of new things.